The Reinvention of Edison Thomas, Chapter 12, Part 1. George Washington's Cross the Delaware. Eddie lay in the warm water of the bathtub and worked up some lavender-scented lather in his hands. He clenched his fists, then opened them slowly and blew gently, forming a huge bubble between his fingers. He wanted to see the dark area that was supposed to form at the top of a bubble just before it pops. He couldn't see it. His bubble popped just like his hopes for his invention. He watched the tiny droplets, remnants of the bubble, spread explosively in the air. There had to be something good about the day. Eddie had come up with a solution to the traffic problem. Instead of just losing sleep over it, at least Tiffany would be proud. After all, his invention was technically a success, even if Officer Rodriguez didn't think so. Justin and Kip liked it. Maybe his invention would solve another problem, since Eddie had saved Mitch's life. Mitch Man would be eternally grateful to his good buddy Super Eddie. He might even be proud to be his friend again. Or not. Maybe he would at least stop making fun of Eddie and getting him in trouble. Eddie would settle for that. Maybe his invention would even make him popular, like Mitch. Eddie hoped not, because he wouldn't like to have so many people around him all the time. He preferred to be like himself. Or maybe with one or two other people, like Justin and Kip, or Terry. Otherwise, with too many people talking, Eddie had too many of those stupid, unwritten social rules to decipher at the same time. He held his breath, closed his eyes, and submerged himself in the bathwater. Anyway, he thought, he'd have plenty of time to think about that during his week of extra chores for wrecking Dad's garden hose. Once the bill for the stop sign arrived, it would probably be more like a month. Fact number 299,792,458 from the random access memory of Edison Thomas. Reflective signs in paint contain tiny glass beads. Light that hits the surface is reflected directly back where it came from, a process called retroreflection. The next morning at school, the hall seemed to be noisier than usual, or was it just Eddie's head that was noisy? Eddie! It was Justin. Was your dad mad when he found out about the stop sign? I have not told him about it yet. Eddie hoped it would take a week or so for the bill to arrive at his house, since he was already in trouble because of the hose. He hadn't worked up the courage to tell Dad about the Mitch incident. Everybody's talking about how your invention saved Mitch's life. That was so great. I mean, snap, even if you had to take it down, you proved that you could do it. The noise level in the hall increased as a crowd approached. In the center, Eddie could make out Mitch's head protruding about 8 centimeters above the others. This was Eddie's chance. Now Mitch would acknowledge him in front of all these people. His old friend Eddie's ingenious invention had saved his life. Hey, Mitch! The crowd fell silent. Hey, geek, replied Mitch. The crowd burst into laughter and fluttered away. Eddie's heart sank. Nothing had changed. What's the matter? Asked Justin. I thought Mitch would be nicer to me after what happened. Eddie opened his locker. You know what they say, a leopard can't change its spots. Eddie wondered what leopards had to do with anything. You didn't really expect him to turn into a decent human being, did you? Asked Justin. Once a jerk, always a jerk. Don't let it bother you. Mitch hadn't always been a jerk, but he was now. Eddie looked at Justin. Not everybody was a jerk. Justin wasn't. Justin wouldn't tell on Eddie. Do you think Mitch is enough of a jerk to plant a Roman candle in my backpack? Snap, did he do that? When was this? Eddie looked around to make sure they wouldn't be overheard. He told Justin the facts about the Roman candle and his suspicions about Mitch. By the time Eddie had finished talking, Justin's face had turned red. That explains why you were acting so weird at lunch. You should tell Mr. Benton about it right now. But I do not have any proof that Mitch did anything, and if I tell anybody about it, I could get blamed and suspended. I think you're making a big mistake. If you let him get away with it, what do you think he'll do next? I have no idea what Mitch will do next. That was a rhetorical question. I didn't expect you to know the answer. Oh. I still think you should tell. Mitch needs to know that he can't walk all over you anymore. Eddie pictured himself lying on the ground and Mitch walking on him. That was how he felt lately, like he had been walked on. I will think about it. Good. But promise you won't tell anybody. Of course, I'll see you in math class. Eddie shut his locker door. Later, he said. He looked at the drip of dried ketchup below the lower ventilation slots of his locker. It looked like blood. He didn't want to give up hope that his traffic invention had mattered to Mitch. A thought came to Eddie's mind. Every time Mitch said or did anything mean to Eddie, he was with someone else. Not surprising. Mitch was a popular kid and he had a lot of friends. Maybe he really did change his mind about Eddie, but since he was surrounded by admirers, maybe he didn't want to let on that he had a new admiration for Eddie. After all, according to the pamphlet Tiffany had given him, many bullies want other kids to admire them, or respect them, or fear them. The other kids were probably encouraging Mitch to do those things. Like Will, he was always hanging around Mitch and laughing at his jokes. Maybe Will was egging Mitch on, although actual eggs were probably not involved. Instead of going right to homeroom, Eddie headed up the stairs for a detour past Mitch's locker. Mitch was alone at his locker. Eddie didn't approach him right away, but watched him as he rifled through some papers in his locker, evidently looking for something. Eddie knew he had to act now or he'd lose his nerve. He took a deep breath, pasted a smile into his face, and walked up to Mitch. Hey, Mitch, man! What do you want, super dork? Mitch had remembered their superhero names. Sort of. That was a good sign. It was lucky that my invention was there when that SUV blew through the stop sign. What? You know, said Eddie. My traffic control device. It kept you from getting hurt at the intersection. So? I just thought you might have something to say to me. Yeah, get lost. Eddie stood there a while and mustered up some more courage. I think this changes things. Do you agree? What would change? You're still a loser. Now get out of my face before I get really mad. That was it. The last shred of hope Eddie had for the friendship was gone. There was nothing left for him to hold on to. Once he realized that, Eddie expected to feel as if he had lost a friend, like when his first pet, a gerbil, had died. But he didn't. Instead, he felt relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Eddie didn't have to carry the weight of his friendship with Mitch. He was suddenly and unexpectedly free from the notion that he had to put up with Mitch's abuse. He didn't have to do anything to make Mitch his friend. It just didn't matter. In fact, Mitch wasn't even the kind of person Eddie wanted as a friend. He would not be able to change Mitch's attitude, but he could change his own. The last page of the pamphlet appeared in his mind. He began to recite the speech he had prepared. I may not be as popular as you. Tell me something I don't know, said Mitch, as he found what he had been looking for in his locker and closed the door. The square root of 1,225 is 35, but do not change the subject. I may not be as popular as you are, but I am a human being. That's debatable. I am a human being and I deserve respect. I want you to stop bothering me and stop making fun of me and getting me in trouble. Getting you in trouble? Yes, filling up my locker with ketchup packs. What makes you think it was me, Captain Ketchup? And you also put something in my backpack. Did I? Yes, I believe you did. You were always a smart guy, Professor, Mitch laughed as he walked past Eddie, pushing him hard against the lockers. Eddie tried not to yell as he crashed into the lockers, making a painfully loud noise. As he watched Mitch walk away, Eddie realized that he was experiencing a full-blown fight-or-flight response. Was Mitch admitting to planting the Roman candle? He closed his eyes and took 3 slow, deep breaths. What had he done? He had stood up for himself. He had accused Mitch of a crime. Had he made things worse? He was developing a painful egg-sized bruise on his elbow. Yes, things were definitely worse. Fact number 24 from the Random Access Memory of Edison Thomas. The egg of the ostrich contains the largest single cell on Earth. Eddie got to lunch in time to get a table to himself in the corner. Unfortunately, Justin found him. Have you gotten over your funk? He asked. No, I am still funky, replied Eddie. He didn't want to tell Justin what had happened with Mitch. Funky, Justin laughed. Snap, Eddie, you crack me up. Eddie turned to face Justin. He looked him straight in the nose and asked, Why do you have to laugh at me? Because you're funny. Does that mean you have to make fun of me? I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you. I am not laughing, so how can you be laughing with me? No offense, Eddie, but you say some pretty funny things. I'm just laughing at your jokes. But I was not telling a joke. Maybe you should. You can say some pretty funny stuff. People like that. Eddie stopped himself from saying anything more. Eddie didn't remember ever having told Justin a joke. Eddie liked to tell jokes, but nobody ever understood them. At least his parents never did. See, if you like this joke. A ship is sailing around the coast of Madagascar. It is night, but the moon is full. The captain notices an animal in the woods on the island. It has big eyes that glow in the moonlight. The captain calls to a science officer. What is that animal? And the science officer replies, Aye, aye, Captain. Justin laughed so hard his milk spurted out of his nose. Aye, aye, like the lemur, right? That's what I'm talking about, he said. That's hilarious. He wiped his face with his shirt. Terry approached the table and sat down across from Eddie and Justin. Today, her hair was the color of amethyst, a variety of quartz or silicon dioxide. Eddie, I hear you saved Mitch's life, she said. You're a hero. Mitch does not seem to think so, said Eddie, rubbing his sore elbow. Well, I do, said Terry. Guess what? Let me see, mused Justin. Purple is not your natural hair color. Did I guess right? Terry punched Justin in the arm. No, all the kids are talking about the way Mitch almost got hit by a car, and they say the intersection is too dangerous without a crossing guard. Well, duh, said Justin. So they decided to do something about it, continued Terry. They're going to start a volunteer crossing guard squad. Oh, right, said Justin. The crossing guard's been gone for weeks, and nobody notices until the most popular kid in school almost buys the farm. What farm? Asked Eddie. Almost croaks, said Justin. Eddie thought about frogs and toads. Some croak, but others make more of a chirping sound. In some species, only the male croaks. They croak to claim territory or to attract a mate.